guys, so in today's video what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the lower part of your hands and arms and the role that they should play in squaring the club face. Now this video has been prompted by a recent golf lesson. Somebody came through the door and had a pretty typical amateur problem where they were sort of really scooping and flicking at the golf ball like so. So it could hit the ball pretty straight, but things like compression and strike just weren't there and obviously had inconsistencies. And throughout the lesson, with a few explanations and a couple of drills, managed to leave with the ability to get the hands forward and square the club face, and obviously a lot more confidence leaving the lesson. And I wanted to share it with you in a very simple step-by-step approach. So first of all, if we just understand the problem. Now, when you're scooping, this basically means the club head is overtaking the hands. Now, because that happens, that doesn't mean you can't square the face. So I can actually hit straight shots with a kite scoopy action. But the problem when you do that is you're going to be adding loft. Okay, and also the club is going to be coming down too soon, which can lend itself to inconsistency in strike. But what it will do is, obviously when you're adding loft, is you're never going to be able to compress the ball, because that sort of term compression basically means producing less loft at the point of impact than you start with. So if you've got a 7-iron at 30 degrees and you can produce 15 degrees, that's what we're after. If you've got a 7-iron at 30 degrees and you're producing 35, 40 degrees, that's what we don't want, right? And that's what we want to get rid of. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to just understand the importance of getting the hands ahead of the club head. And I would just practice striking the ground an inch beyond the ball. Okay, and just do this when you're down the driving range or wherever it is that you practice. If you're off grass, even better. Just make some swings where you make sure that your hands are ahead, okay? So they don't have to be maybe quite as far ahead as what I'm demonstrating in this video, but again, trying to exaggerate to the point where, can you see, my club is striking an inch beyond the golf ball, okay? And that's an important thing. So we want to be more like so, as opposed to something like so, where the club would come down too soon. We want to get those hands forward, like so. Now, that would seem quite simplistic, and then the question would be, well, why do I have such difficulty just getting my hands forward? Well, it does get a little bit complicated, because what happens when your hands go further forward, if I do it like so, in fact I'm going to hold the club out in front of you, when my hands go further forward, can you see what it does to the club face? Okay, so every time my hands go further forward, the club face opens more. That's why what we also need to understand as we're coming towards the downswing is not only do we need to get the hands forward to help us control that low point, but we also need to understand there has to be an element of arm rotation to square the club face. And this is where I think a lot of the difficulty lies. Okay, because we need to do both of those things. Now, when we look at a professional golfer and we get to see these brilliant golfers in slow motion, you're always going to see a very similar thing. You're going to see the hands. When the club shaft is parallel to the floor, you're going to see the hands located roughly over the trail thigh. Okay, and the glove, okay, would be pointing pretty much towards the camera. And then as that journey carries on, you're going to get to a pre-impact position where now the hands are ahead of the ball and the club head would still be opposite that trail foot. So the question really is, like, what happens in this little journey between here and here? And the answer is your lead arm is going to rotate. Okay, so you can see I'm just going to roll that lead hand to bring that club around in the bottom part of that swing. Okay, so what we are hopefully going to learn and what we're understanding, and this is exactly what happened with the student, is okay, there's a couple of things that are going to have to happen here. One, my hands are going to have to go forward to make sure they stay ahead of the club head, but also has to happen is there has to be an element of forearm rotation to square the club face. And it's obviously getting the blend of both of those that is going to lend itself to much better results. Now, the drills that I'd practice, and this is what I do with all my students to keep it a little bit more natural and a little bit more sort of free-flowing, is first of all to do some lead arm only swings. Okay, this is one of my favorite drills for a number of reasons, but we're particularly going to relate it to the club face. So we're trying to understand that I need to allow my lead arm to rotate like so to be able to get that club face square coming in towards that downswing. Okay, so as I make some swings lead hand only, this is a really nice way to keep that club moving through. And you can just see if I do it slowly, lead hand, like so. See this part here? This is the bit that we're trying to make sure that we get into the habit of, not this. Now, when you're doing it lead hand only, because of the weight of the club and the momentum, the likelihood is that your hands will always stay far forward. Okay, now what you need to do is you just need to make sure that when that club is striking that point an inch beyond the ball, you want to make sure that the back of your lead wrist would be square towards the target. So we don't want to be practicing this, because that's going to be no good, because that means you're going to get shaft lead, but you're going to shank it or put it into the bush. So it's this way, okay? Practicing both of those feelings. So it's getting the hands forward as you square that club face in a sort of simple lead hand only exercise. Okay, now once you can do that and you can sort of get a feel for, okay, that kind of makes sort of sense, then you can try and hit some shots just gently where you're looking for sort of decent results. You might hit the ball 50-60 yards and it should go pretty straight. The next drill which I want you to practice is to ensure that your trail hand then, when it comes into it, doesn't try and take over. So it doesn't kind of like, you know, sort of stop back here and then make you scoop at it. We need to make sure this trail hand is continuing to help you push that club through so it's not impeding. Now, a great way to do this is to do like a hand separation exercise. So if I put my hands on the club like so, I'm going to now keep the position of my right hand, but I'm going to take all of the fingers off my hand. Okay, so the only thing that is staying in contact with the club is my palm. So my trail palm is in contact with my lead thumb. And as I hit some shots now, I'm just going to try and get that same feeling with my lead hand, but I'm just going to make sure that my right palm is staying in contact with my left thumb at all times. Okay, so you go back to our scooper action. What happens is that the arm gets too far away from the body, and that makes you hit like this and like this. Very narrow in this through swing, it's all broken down. So you've just spent a little bit of time practicing keeping that left arm straight, and what we now need to make sure is that that hand, that trail hand, is helping you support that hit as you go through. And that's how I would kind of work on it. And that's exactly what I did with the student. We did some lead hand only swings, okay, and then we did some hand separation exercises. And what that started to do is started to really give him a bit of confidence that, yeah, okay, well, I can strike the ground and I can get the face square and I can hear the sound of the compression, and the whole thing just feels so much better. And then as sort of time goes on and you get a little bit more confidence, what you can then do is start to do the same drill but swing a little longer, okay, and then again swing a little longer than that. And all you're trying to do when you're doing this trail hand is just make sure that when you swing back, my palm is pushing my left thumb, and as I swing through, my palm is staying in contact with my hand, like so. And then you should be able to produce a sort of 3/4 length swing and getting some nice results. And that's the key thing that you're looking for. Now, eventually, as time goes on, you can start to go from this type of drill or this type of grip to reallocating your index finger and your thumb, and that should give you a little bit more strength to be able to take the weight of the club, so that you can go from just doing a 3/4 length swing to a much fuller swing. And again, those are the feelings that you want. So the idea in this lesson is to understand we need to strike an inch beyond the ball, and one of the things that's going to help us do that is getting the hands slightly further forward. And if we're concentrating on getting the hands further forward, what that does is it opens the face. So we need to understand that simultaneously, as we come down and we bring the hands forward, we need to introduce some arm rotation to get the club face square, to get the ability to do both of those things. And as we do that, that is going to lend ourselves to controlling, striking the ground ahead of the ball and getting the club face square. And that's going to lend itself to that compression, reducing the loft, straighter shots, but all of a sudden just much better ball striking. And I think both of those drills will work a treat, because I see it with students that I work with online, and as the example that we've seen in today's video, it works an absolute treat, and I'm sure it will for you guys as well. I'll see you soon.